Oh, we're so adorable. I know.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the very first episode of Deep Thought-Iwaba.
So excited to be here, everybody. So you're going
That's
to
what she
notice
said,
that we're not technically live. And
right?
so the chat is not here to distract us. So we are in deep Thought-Iwaba mode and we are getting to the bottom of some of these mysteries. You know, we make a lot of jokes and we have a lot of fun. But when me and Bree really started this podcast and this, whole Thought-Iwaba stuff, we were very serious and told lots of stories. So we're kind of throwing it back to our older days where we get a little bit more serious, do a little bit more deep dives. Don't worry, the fun stuff is not going anywhere. This is just in addition to all the fun things that we do.
Absolutely. So, obviously, deep thoughts, all types of topics, spiritual. I tried to put a little bit in there in the intro, but we're going to explore a whole bunch here. And today, our very first episode is on parallel universes.
Yes.
Whoa. Wow.
What? We all basically know what that means, right? There's an alternate version of us here now. So, in this, though, we're going to go over all the different scientific theories that can be applied. So, a lot of the times when we talk about these things, I think we just kind of spit ideas out there, and it doesn't mean that it isn't valid. But these theories in particular are ones that have scientific background. These are overall accepted in the scientific world as possible theories. So, mainly mathematics backs all of this up.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
We're going to start. Oh, sorry, Kari, did you have a question?
I was saying awesome. Good job.
Awesome. So, we're going to start here with Max Tegmark. He is an MIT physicist, and in 2003, he wrote a paper inside a group of papers. The paper was Parallel Universes, and this really became the model for scientifically accepted theories.
Mm-hmm.
Everything fits physics wise, it all fits in this model that he created. And it comes down to four different levels of theoretical parallel universes.
Mm-hmm.
But this was in 2003. So for the longest time, it was about eight years. It was the longest time that this was really the only model that was ever really talked about.
The only accepted model, yeah.
Right. And then in 2011, Brian Greene, another physicist, took those four levels and then really expanded on them. He went into more depth of the different types of parallel universes that could exist in these four levels. So first we're going to go over what these four levels are. That was off of Max Tegmark's, and then we'll go over kind of quickly what the different parallel universe types that Brian came up with that, again, fit inside these level fours. So I did also break that down so you can see all the different types and then what level they would fit into.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okie dokie. So again, four different types of levels. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can always think of it, well, I tend to think of it as kind of basics and then just like more complicating as it goes on. And how could it happen? Because mathematics suggests that there's, when it comes to numbers, if there's an infinite amount of sequences, that a number sequence is bound to repeat itself. And everything in the universe comes down to math. So mathematical existence is physical existence. So our level 1 parallel universe. This image is the easiest that sticks in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically an extension of our own space, our own universe. So again, based off the theory that the universe is ever expanding, just infinite amount of space. And in this theory, it would be the exact copy of Earth, the solar system, all of it. It would all be the same. It's just that it has repeated itself basically at the end of our universe. So that's why I put the picture of the road, because I think of it as flat, continuing forward, you reach an end, and then another one starts. Does that make sense? And then it just goes
Yes.
on forever and forever and forever. Basically like this. So it's us.
Yes.
Everything is the same, just over and over and over.
You can compare it almost to like a treadmill, right? So you see that road, you think you're only running on that piece, but the more and more you run, it never stops ending. You keep running in that same,
Right.
It keeps going on infinitely.
Mm-hmm. Like this is each box would be like our space, everything that's going on, and then there's another one and another one and another one. How did they
is there
come to
awareness
this?
between? Would you say there's awareness between the different?
You mean that we're aware of? That's
Right.
That's like we're definitely gonna have to hold our. I'd like to say spiritual. It's not necessarily spiritual, but when it comes to all of that thing till the end, because I think all of these theories are what we're going to spin off, can go through this. It'll apply for everything.
Okay.
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 So the how and why of how our space, our time, in the same containment that we're in, how could that be possible? It's based on cosmic inflation. So we all basically know there was a big bang and then space exploded and it's just continuous, right? That's how we know that galaxies are moving away from us. And then the W map, when that came around, how we mapped our universe, they measured the cosmic microwave background, basically just leftover radiation from the Big Bang, to see the shape, a snapshot of our universe in time, which gave us this overall shape. But that's not necessarily the shape of the universe. This is just what we're seeing from heat signature. So this doesn't account for things like dark energy, things like that. This is just basically heat signatures that we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how they came up with that elliptical shape. Could it be considered like there's a center of the universe and time is like in a gravity well around that center point? So that
I think it is because that's our perspective of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that image is us looking out in every direction possible, which is why it's giving it that effect. If we were to have moved, a few light years away and done that same exact picture, it might look slightly different because you have a different view of what you're seeing.
Right. Okay.
Well, this is the possible shapes of the universe. And so how they measured it, actually, everything should, if it's a perfect triangle, it's going to come to 180 degrees. This is how we're going to figure out whether our universe, our space, is either flat, a positive curve, or a negative curve. And here at the top, you see, like, this is our perspective. So they basically measured, if you look at the bottom, the number of galaxies by the distance. That was our point where the laser was. That was our single point from our perspective, like Jamie said.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They shot these lasers to side of the universe, and then they measured that. So it was a perfect 180 degrees from where we are here to here. It made a perfect flat triangle. So they're assuming, based off of that measurement, that the universe is indeed flat.
Flat elliptical plane.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's basically how we can just, if it is that flat elliptical plane, just like perfect example that Jamie said, the treadmill.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we're just going and going and going.
I just
So
thought
in my head, I'm
of
just
another
like,
analogy for
Earth.
it. So you know how there's the theory of the universe contracting and expanding.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it in terms of like when a speaker vibrates. If you were to slow that down, kind of like on Interstellar, the giant waves. Same process where it's a wave that's so like this process of expansion contraction could be a vibration cycle in of itself that creates and then undoes it, and then and
Well,
yeah.
what if too that movement is just the movement of living organisms, right? Because if you start to look at the way things move that are living, we all kind of have this motion, do we not? Right? So what if the motion of the universe is because the universe is just a natural living thing and that's how it moves?
Where does the universe move, and what is it moving through?
Same question for us. I mean, it apply in that same exact way, right? So like you could say the same thing about yourself, like where am I and how am I traveling, right? Same, how am I moving? But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not necessarily like it's an ocean and it's waves, but what if the universe itself, the way it's moving and expanding and just traveling through whatever it is it's traveling through is just because that's its natural state. And it's just like, think about like when a jellyfish moves through water.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was our level 1 universe. This is our second one. Beautiful picture.
Level
I
2.
tried to add a photo to each one because, again,
So you can get a visual.
I'm a visual person. So when I see this, I'm like, okay, this is what this is. Bubbles.
Bubbles.
Level 2. So this is off the theory that when the Big Bang exploded, it happened so rapidly, the inflation of it, that it created a soap-like bubble. When you think of soap, it's like, so it'd be like, bam!
Popped itself out, yeah.
Right. So this cosmic giant soap bubble, basically. And within that contains a crowd of other bubbles. And each bubble is its own universe. And they can bounce and collide off of each other, creating sister universes. So every single bubble, since it's in a larger space of other bubbles, it's splitting, it's forming another one, it's reforming, they're budding off of each other. And in this level 2 universe, basically this is happening infinity and beyond. So this could even maybe make sense for what you guys are saying or trying to talk about the movement, right? If we are in a bubble of infinite bubbles where we are colliding and clashing with each other, that would almost be like we're swimming. That's our movement.
Exactly. That same motion. I was going to say what you're describing is the same motion as that level 1 universe to me. Like the way
Level
you're describing
2,
it is the very jellyfishy moving around, hanging out.
Level 2 reads to me like the multiverse. How they're explaining the multiverse in the Marvel movies is this, where they can now, because of whatever is going to happen in the next Doctor Strange movie, all these universes can now collide and mix together and they create new things, and
Infinite possibilities.
Other things can be budding off of each other. It could be leftovers of 3 universes that all of a sudden creates a different one.
Right.
But that it makes sense to me. And it's like the touching and the movement and the gliding, and all of a sudden one pops. Beautiful. This is based off of M theory in string theory. I just liked to put a little note for those that are unaware that string theory is based off of that particles are not dots. They, under a closer look, they looked like strings, and these strings are connected to everything in the universe. But these particles were vibrating. In M theory, it's that those particles that were vibrating appear to look like a membrane. Membrane. So it's like membrane theory. And it is inside the bulk, which is hyperspace. This would be the larger structure which everything is contained. Something I don't think any of us can truly fathom. Because we're talking about like the universe inside of a universe inside of some giant space. Is there something beyond that?
We're talking about non-linear space. So
exactly. Yeah.
it would
it's
be
just what?
Interstellar does a really good depiction of that when they go into the wormhole and they're traveling across the galaxy. That's the bulk. So it's a space outside of space. So it's technically it's not. I wouldn't say it's stepping out of the universe, because I think we need to separate space and the vastness of space and different universes, because there's different
Right.
versions of that space.
When we
So
speak of universe, it's because we're used to thinking that the universe means everything, but in reality, the universe is just our own little
right, I
pocket
think
of
reality is
space.
probably a better framing for it.
Our reality?
I mean,
I do not
base
know.
reality for us, like so that
Base
with the bulk,
reality.
base
Right.
reality for us. If we were to enter the bulk, we're stepping outside of linear space time,
Mm-hmm.
and
God,
then
chaos.
it's basically going what I guess New Agers would say is going up a dimension or whatever, because you're going outside of the confines of normal space time, and in the purpose of the movie, they're traveling, so they're
Right.
and it's a purpose that, like, people from the future had put that wormhole there to take them there. So they've engineered this wormhole to travel to a certain point by using non-linear space, which is kind of what the movie is about. Sorry, little tangent.
Yes. No, please. So these are our. I tried because.
Hey guys, hold on. I have a problem. My computer is no longer charging and I'm at 8% battery.
Why is it not charging?
My charger just stopped fucking working.
Oh,
I didn't
no.
realize it because I was in fucking full screen, but it hasn't been charging this whole time we've been doing this.
Okay,
Should I end the broadcast?
No.
just keep going.
It's just if I drop out, that's why. So.
Okay.
Continue.
Anyway,
So these membranes, they are basically like a wall, like sheets, and our universe is tethered to the wall. So I tried to make it look like little walls, little sheets here, and then this mesh is the membrane. That's where we would be attached to. And in between here, sheet and sheet, would be extra dimensions. That's basically based off the theory that we're living in 11 dimensions.
right, they try to visually touch on that in Interstellar, when at the end of the movie, when he gets sent back by the bulk beings, the higher dimensional humans.
Right.
He shakes what's the name? Brand's hand in the spaceship. That's breaking linear time. That's breaking. I mean, he's in like, I'm fairly sure that he ascended in that movie. Because the way that he is able to, like, then on his way back, and he shakes a hand. He's traveling. He shakes a hand, but then appears like 70 years in the future. So I'm fairly sure he's in some kind of higher dimension at that point, and whatever we see at
Possibly.
the end of the movie is some kind of higher
different-
dimensional construct that he's made, where he gets to see his family and then go off into the great adventure, which is, they talk in that movie about reaching out for your children and stuff as you die, and that's exactly what happens at the end of the movie. He reaches out to his child, gets closure, and then goes off in a spaceship. And
Yep.
Chris Nolan, man, so much metaphor.
So the action of those two membranes, those two sheets that were colliding together, that's what could have caused our Big Bang. If this were to continuously be happening, it would just keep butting off of each other, going. Like we were saying earlier with the bubbles are colliding. Mm-hmm. If they do collide and clash, but this is going on forever. And it's, I think, crazy to think that the Big Bang wasn't just one and done, just happening. It's happening forever. Time forever. Crazy. Okay. Level 3.
Level 3, bitches, let's
How
get it.
crazy are we gonna get?
There are infinite copies of us existing right now, living in this exact moment, space, and time. And we are only separated by them time-wise, by another dimension. And every moment of your life, every decision is causing a split from where you are now into an infinite number of your future selves, like branching on a tree. This tree here, it's like you come up with an idea, a thought, you've now split other worlds of yourself where you're doing both. And this is where I shouldn't have added this. I should have put this at the end. But it's like the idea of making quantum jumps.
Right.
Because it's to another parallel universe.
Right.
So
well,
you
this is
see-
where the- okay.
This is kind of like the same idea of like you wake up in the morning, you have an apple and an orange to choose from what you have for dinner, or for breakfast, and so that decision itself creates two versions of yourselves that go off and live that day. And then also inside of those separately, you have other decisions that you're making that create more and more splinters of themselves. So
Correct.
the reality is that anytime you make any sort of decision or do or something that has a cause and effect, it's splitting off and creating two different versions of you, one who takes each path.
Yes, because
But-
electrons appear and reappear. They can be at the same place at once, and they also can do the wave, the wave function. Right? Any possibility that can happen, the electron is doing all things at once. So it's basically the reality that all particles, which we're made of particles, would then behave the exact same way. Not just going right or left, but doing all things, that we're taking all options. So that's how it's like as above, so below, right? If we're going down to the very quantum particle and seeing that it behaves that way, that it's doing all things, then that would also be the same if we were to zoom out from that. Everything would be
Put it
doing
onto a
that.
larger scale. Yeah.
Yes.
I just had an epiphany, kind of.
Which is why I put the little double split experiment in here.
Which is such a good one. It's a
That's
classic.
actually what gave me the epiphany.
With the SpongeBob.
I
what's
love
his
that.
face?
So imagine you're making some art, right? And you go into a flow state where you're no longer consciously aware. Kind of, when you go into flow and you kind of let go a little bit? Double slit experiment. You stop being aware and then you get into flow and then all things are possible.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, that was
This
my
is
epiphany.
probably what aligns with me the most. Oops. Sorry. It's this movement here. It's turning
I
and
think I've had that
turning
trip before.
and turning. Which is a
So interesting.
weird
So now,
fucking possibility.
yeah. So now we get into the third one here, and it seems
Isn't there
that
the
the
fourth one?
motion. Are we the fourth? This is fourth.
No, we're in third still.
Third, yeah,
I'm
third,
just
right,
wrapping
yeah.
it up.
Okay.
Third still, but it's interesting because the motion has now changed. Now what you're describing doesn't seem this jelly-like jellyfish movement. It seems this very spiral, drastically
that's
different
just
than what it was before.
That's more of a visually artistic way to describe it, but I think
No, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
even in the way that even if she didn't have these visuals, if we were just the way we're talking, the way that we're describing and talking about the first and second level seemed very jellyfish-like, and then now we're getting onto this next one, and it doesn't sound like the same motion at all.
Right.
right.
And this is basically what we said earlier. It's so in quantum physics, this many worlds theory is this. It's all possibilities, all probabilities have and will happen. So I just put in this world, we're not doing the show, and another one, we already finished the show. Some world, the Nazis won. So it's the same thing. If you're presented with options, it then forms a world, a universe for each of those options, and you technically took them all.
Mathematically, you did.
Yes, that's why I'm saying technically. You mathematically took them all. This is the fourth level. We've now reached the end of the elevator.
Oh my god.
Ooh,
Do we
ding.
ascend at the end of this?
Oh, we do.
To hell.
This
Yes.
is where everything doesn't go out the door, but it is no longer based off of our mathematics. fundamentally different mathematical equations from what govern our universe. So it's a completely different set of rules. Just because our mathematics work in a certain way in this universe doesn't mean that in another universe those exact same rules apply. Doesn't mean that those numbers, those equations, whatever they come out to, doesn't mean that it doesn't work in that universe. But because there are different equations in general, we're going back to it being a physical structure then. That if there's that mathematical equation, then there's a physical existence.
I have a question. So
Yes.
can you go back a slide? Just so my question makes more sense. So this is fundamentally different mathematical equations. Now, a mathematical equation can be truncated down to a frequency. And if you take that frequency, Fringe went into this, right? Where different realities have a different, they operate at a different note. So,
Right.
like in Fringe, one reality is in the key of G, and then another one's in the key of like F sharp or something, and it is completely different, but very much the same, but completely different. And yeah, it just made me think of that.
That's a great way to put it. I'm glad that you said that because I think it could possibly get confusing for people. It's basically just, it's completely different than ours.
It's a different chord.
Right.
So up until now, every single other reality is based on the governing laws of physics in this reality. Where level 4 is this where it gets like crazy. You get like a reality where everything's made out of chocolate and nothing makes sense. So
yes, which in this is only, I think this really only made the cut because a long-standing famous quote in quantum physics from John Wheeler was, why these particular equations and not others? And so Tegmark in this paper is saying, let's explore the idea of mathematical democracy where other universes aren't governed. It's governed by other equations, but they're equally real. So just, it doesn't mean it's not real if it just doesn't work in our little time and space and pocket of the world.
But then it's strange because it's like, say you're trying to get an invention to work, and there's a reality in which it does work and a reality in which you're failing to do it. But then what if it's a case of there's a reality in which it works, but that reality also happens to be one of these realities with a different set of laws, and that's why the invention works. So is it a case of the reality being different, or the kind of smaller scale being different in it's the invention that works instead of the reality?
Wow.
Okay. I know.
Or is that
there.
reality is
Wow.
that reality with those specific specifications only created because in that one universe you had the possibility of it working and not working? It's kind of like, is that the chicken or the egg, right? Like, was that universe already there and so it happened to work inside of that universe, or is it that universe was created in that moment because he created that thing?
Right. I mean, yeah. Yes. I'll save my overall opinion for the end.
Yes, please do, because we're getting into more.
I know.
This kind of would be like, in another universe, our colors could be inverted. I could have pink skin right now. That's my dream. I could have pink skin. Maybe we operate on completely different temperatures. Maybe the wind, everything could be totally flipped upside down and different in this universe. There could be dinosaurs, all kinds of crazy shit. We
could shit diamonds, yeah.
Yeah, we have no idea. It's Looney Tunes. Just Looney Tunes. So now we can introduce Mr. Greene again, because we're going to expand on his ideas and his theories based off of those 4 levels. How do they fit inside Tegmark's model? We have the quilted universe. Conditions of an infinite universe necessarily repeat across space-time, yielding other parallel worlds. We already said that. That's basically just level 1, but that's his quilted universe. Inflationary multiverse. With inflationary theory, in cosmology, predicts an expansive universe filled with bubble universes, like our level 2, of which our universe is only one of those. So internal cosmological inflation yields an enormous network of bubble universes. And inside of this would be level 1 and 2. So we still have our level 1 universe where at the end of our space and time, it continues forever, forever. But we're still contained inside of a bubble in this overall mesh network of bubbles. Does that make sense? We're combining 1 and 2.
Right.
Yes.
We only consider a universe as going on forever and ever and ever from our own perspective within the time flow. So if we were to go into bulk space and then look at the shape of the universe, it wouldn't have this endlessness to it.
Who fucking knows? I have no idea. We have a brain multiverse. This goes back to the M theory. So the possibility that our universe is on a 3-dimensional brain, while other brains of any number of dimensions could have whole other universes on them. So we're back on these sheets, but just multiple of them. This is level 2, the bubbles. Cyclic?
Cyclic.
See, cyclic. Or cyclic. I'm going to say cyclic.
We use, in the weather world,
Like
we use
cycle.
cyclic. So
Cyclic.
it's a cyclic supercell.
Well, we'll say that. Cyclic.
Cyclic.
This is also based in M theory. So those brains that we were all chilling on, they collide with each other. They result in universe spawning big bangs just over and over and over and over again, just like it happened to ours. And it's just the possibility that all these other collisions between the brain worlds could manifest these big bang beginnings. So it would just happen over and over and over again, parallel in time. And I hope my little icons here is bubble, bang, universe, continue on both sides. Level 1. Oops, did I skip one? Yes. The landscape multiverse. Okay, so string theory leaves open a lot of different fundamental properties of the universe. So if we were to combine the inflationary multiverse, which is all the bubbles and stuff, there could be other bubble universes out there, but they have different laws of physics that we inhabit. So that's our level 1 and our level 2, our 4. So I think we were actually playing, I think Jamie was kind of playing with this idea earlier that when you guys were doing, like, is it the chicken or the egg thing? Mm-hmm. We could still be in these bubbles. We could still have this inflation-like situation, but it doesn't mean that it's going to have the exact same physics as us. There could be a multiverse out there where that is still happening. We're still expanding, bursting, merging, and forming, but we're forming completely different sets of mathematical equations that work in that universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We have the quantum multiverse, the one that makes sense to everything, the many worlds interpretation. That was the all things can happen, will happen. So in some universe, that shit's happening. And it just happens over and over and over again. And that's how we have the multiverse.
That's like
The
Murphy's Law on a galactic scale.
Right. We have the holographic universe. So, actually, I was talking to you about this the other day. Derived from the theory that the surface area of a space can simulate the volume of the region. So, according to the theory of how holographic material works in general, there could be a physically equivalent space for that parallel universe, but it would exist on the very distant edge of a surface, like a mirror. So at the very end of our space, if something's being projected to make it holographic, then that hologram is bouncing off the edge of that surface and creating another one.
That sounds like a fractal.
Yeah,
Yes.
fractals.
Is mirroring itself on the edges of itself. So
Right. So we could still be in a holographic universe, but inside overall of it would contain multiverses. It would just be instantaneous, because if all of this is being projected, then at the end of the projection, it's going to technically mirror itself, because there's an edge, there's an end.
right.
The simulated multiverse. We all know what this means. There's a possibility that we are all in a simulation. And so we have no idea how this could work, what it could work. But if everything is simulated the same way that we're creating VR, you play The Sims, we have AI, that on a huge level could create what we feel is reality, but really it's all a simulation. And if there's one simulation, who's to say that there's not multiple? So this would be level 4, because it's a completely different set of mathematics that we wouldn't understand in order to create this overall simulation that we're living in, and to create multiple infinite versions of it.
Indeed.
The ultimate universe. The ultimate theory.
Ooh.
This is level 4. It's basically the same thing as Tegmark's level 4. Every possible universe is a real universe. So it's eliminating the question of why ours is so special. We don't. These universes, the universes instantaneate all the possible mathematical equations, anything out there, any group of numbers. So it's the extreme version of parallel universes, because it's like anything you can think of, every single theory, just like in science, we have all these different theories. No one can seem to agree on one theory of everything, but it would be that every single one does exist somewhere, that it has to. Some way, shape, some form, it is out there in time. Final thoughts to play with. So, I think that this can explain just the possibility of parallel universes in general, multiverses, and all the different types. I think that this can explain so many things that we go through that is just an idea, like the Mandela effect, why some people seem to remember the way that some things were that others don't. And there seems to be a collective of people that remember things that way, and other people won't. So it could be that our consciousness is constantly making that quantum jump. If this is a level 3 universe, we're constantly making that jump whenever there's a choice, or whenever there's any possibility out there. Our consciousness is constantly hopping between all these different parallel universes, and it happens so quickly and swiftly that we don't notice a change. However, it seems to be that lately a lot of people have been noticing the change, which is very, very interesting. I've noticed some very strange things that have happened. Jamie and I have a friend who called me today with a really weird thing that happened with her. And her first question to me was, do you believe, what did she say? Oh, do you believe in, like, shifting? And I'm like, what do you mean shifting? She's like, shifting realities. And I'm like, that's funny. We're kind of going to talk about this today.
Is that your sister?
No.
Oh.
Because something happened to her that she said happened right in front of her eyes. I think this has probably happened to all of us at some point, but it seems like it's happening at a faster rate, which I don't even know. That's a whole other conversation. I don't know if anyone has any theories on how or why that's happening. I'm even seeing that on like TikTok. Tons of people being like, I don't know what's happening, but I swear that I just shifted into a completely different universe.
I mean, I don't know like why, but I think in terms of how, I think so. If I kind of go for like the ultimate universe theory myself, because I think it's a mixture of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on the person's perception too. But
Right.
manifesting, so is that magnetism at play through time across the membrane?
Exactly. That's
So
how I
like
think it
you're
can
like
work.
you're I mean, it's all math, so like you would be entangled with that moment anyway at future time just by manifesting it. By
Right.
visual, you create that moment for yourself, and then it's like it's a mathematical equation essentially of a point in time, and you've plotted out the equation to get you there, and then it becomes like magnetism in like
Yes.
a time flow in a way.
And I mean, like I think a lot of people talk about how we all have, I think we're all now kind of coming to the conclusion that consciousness exists outside of the brain. So if it does, our consciousness probably is outside of everything. If it's outside of the multiverse, but taps into any number, whatever one we're aligned with at the time, and we're doing that quantum leaping back and forth, that's how we could be manifesting. Because whatever you want, whatever you're thinking, has already formed a universe there. It's already formed that pathway. And by you mentally aligning with it, you're jumping to that timeline where it
you
seems like
have
it
it.
comes out of nowhere, but really it's because you've already put it out there. You've already created that. It's
Right.
there. All possibilities, all probabilities are available. It's just about how and when we're jumping
Right.
to them.
It's
So it
choosing the
wouldn't-
right maths.
So it wouldn't be accurate to say that I am currently living in the universe where all of my manifestations are just a yes, but more of the sense of every time I have these ideas that I want something, a universe is being created, and I am jumping into that universe where the possibility of me getting that is yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's
Well, I
not that
guess
it's
it's a
coming into
multi-stage
thin
thing,
air.
right?
It's that we're jumping there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that's
'Cause
like I guess that's the
even-
difference between them. Is what I mean is like it's not that I'm just sitting in this one universe by itself, and the other universe is the no universe where everything's going bad for her and it's just great for me. That could be a possibility, but what we're more talking about is the fact that you are jumping into where it is already there, so it didn't appear out of nowhere. It was already there.
Yeah. Which is our
forgotten.
quantum jumping. That's why people that practice quantum jumping, it's for that reason. It's basically
So-
if you have a hand and you have 5 different pathways, say there's 5 different universes right now. Most of them are all things you want. Some of them are things that you don't want. At any moment, you can be jumping between all these different possible realities. It's just about which one you're aligning with energetically at the time. Now, this is woo-woo. This is not scientific whatsoever. This is just meshing the woo-woo with the possible science. That whatever you're aligning with mentally and energetically, most important, is that timeline that you would then jump to. And when we say
Is it-
timeline, that's basically what this is. This is the multiverse theory. A timeline is multiple, infinite different versions of the here and now, so it's creating a timeline.
Yeah, let's just like throw this out there that anytime we're talking about like a timeline or time on this channel in general, we're not talking about a linear
Right.
time. Time is everything all at once all the time,
We're
constantly
thinking
happening.
of space expanding, which therefore creates time. So we're just talking about jumping between different spaces.
Exactly. Well, and then
So
it
it's a
also
timeline.
bleeds into, so one time we talked about on Bobby's Cryptid Corner, I was talking about how I saw a TikTok where, I don't think ghosts might possibly not be real, right? Like
Right.
maybe it's just slips, and it kind of bleeds into the same thing, especially the one you were talking about with the sheets. sheet theory, where it's like it's happening on that upper universe, but through that membrane is seeping through into ours, and we're being able to witness those kinds of things. So could that same kind of thing be happening with manifestation in that same thing, where maybe we're reaching into the membrane of these other possible universes and pulling it out of there?
I think it's a case of like,
I don't know.
When you just make the conscious decision that you want something, if we're breaking it down to a case of every decision creating a different universe, that decision to want something creates the universe that you like, in which you want it, therefore creating the magnet.
Have it.
What? Yeah, I mean, are you creating a mathematical pathway to having the thing that you want? I mean, our brains are extremely powerful computers.
Right.
So, like,
this is why I'm kind of leaning towards the ultimate universe theory, because I understand the bubbles.
I think it's just the funnest place to be in, too.
It's the funnest place. I understand the bubbles. I also extremely align with level 3, that just everything that can happen will happen. And I feel like science proves that over and over again in quantum physics, that all particles move that way. And that also, it explains psychic phenomena, like all kinds of things. So that I could never rule out. But I also sort of believe in this, like, maybe holographic universe, which I think makes more sense with ghosts. That it could be just like a hologram and how we perceive that. And also that it could be a simulation. And simulation definitely works with manifesting. If it's a simulation, to me, manifesting would be code. That's all it would be.
Well, then it breaks one layer down further to just maths. So code is maths.
Yeah, I was going to say
it's like everything is math.
So then you get into that whole simulation theory, though, because then if it is all math and it is all numbers, somebody has to be writing that code out there, right? And manifestations could just be somebody learning how to hack into that code and write it themselves, instead of one person or team who's writing the overall code.
Theoretically, we could be in the ultimate universe theory, but also be in a simulation of
1,000%, 100%.
Oh,
yep.
Fuck, you're right. Because it would be
one
of those.
We could be in Roblox, but for humans.
We could technically be in the ultimate universe, and we are, in fact, a petri dish version of how to create a universe in bubbles. And it is indeed our 3 selves as scientists proving that you can create small universes.
Right?
Yes.
And we've projected ourselves into it to experience it.
What it's like.
So we can go out to the base
and be like, I didn't know y'all were here.
You know, one thing I used to say when I was like a Christian, and I still feel this way to this day, whenever there is a painting, a work of art, there's always an artist behind it. There's always an artist that created it. So I feel like it has to be that way. We're in this, whatever this is, there has to be a something, a force, a source, whatever the hell you want to call it. There has to be something for creation.
Well, and I think it's important,
and it could be us.
I think it's very important, though, that you're comparing this to like an art and an artist, because that's not the same as like a god or a creator or somebody you're supposed to worship. Because just because somebody's created something like a piece of artwork doesn't necessarily mean that we're now enslaved to them and like all those type of things. So I think that's very good that you make that distinction between the two, because like you have to know, just because we have a creator or a designer doesn't mean that that's like the person in charge of us or who we look up to.
Right. And I kind of feel like that, we always talk about everything is programming. That's why I also believe in the simulation thing, because I think we all can see where different programming comes from. It's why we have a general set of rules, why we have societal terms, is all because there's a programming. And there could be a possibility that one of the asshole apples on the tree decided to write a code where humanity in general feels like we always have to get on our knees and pray to something that's higher above us, but that's not necessarily the case. That could just be, like I said, some jerk's code, and we are breaking that programming. I think this also works how extraterrestrial and space travel. It could not necessarily mean that they're coming from our space and time. It could not necessarily mean that here on our Saturn that there are aliens. It could be that they are jumping somehow between the different universes into another. And I put the blue chicken in the UFO because I'm playing with the idea if that has happened now in another multiverse because of Corey Good. I know Kari says no, but I'm just playing with the idea here because
No,
if we're
the answer's
going
yes.
to go with that,
Like, that's,
right?
that's the
I
thing.
think-
the answer
I
is
know
yes,
we
but
What
hate
if-
it, but it could
What if
possibly be
all
happening.
what if all UFOs are just chickens driving spaceships because in a different universe they figured out how to fly?
right.
Right? I actually added this last. First, I was like, okay, we're final thoughts. I'm thinking, here's a book. And then David's looking at me because I got my books.
He's looking at
he's
you with
still not-
disgust. Like, I'm not signing your
he's-
book, Brie.
Because he's still not going to sign them. And obviously, deja vu makes sense. When we're like, oh, I've done this before. Huh. You literally could have already been doing that before in another universe. And now you're syncing back up with it in ours.
My deja vu always comes from dreams, though. That's the thing. I'll dream something way before it happens, and then I'll experience it in reality, and I'm like, whoa.
That's called premonition.
It
That
is.
could also be.
I have
But
that
it's also
too
like
sometimes.
It's that the deja vu feeling of
I've done
having
this.
done that before. But it's
I
only
get
for like
deja vu when
it could
I'm
be a
with you.
fleeting moment where I'm aware of being aware of the moment.
Yes.
I'm aware of the other that's weird. So like I'll be aware of the awareness that dreamt it, if that makes any sense. So it happens a lot when I'm in a store, like, and I don't go out to the store like all the time, so it's not like a regular thing. But I'll be like waiting in the queue for the checkout or whatever, and I'll have like it will just be like 2 seconds of me. It's that awareness of awareness. I think it's.
Absolutely.
I'm mincing my words here, but you get my point.
I do. And I think that dreams could even be a play in this. When we have extreme dreams that are just ball out crazy, like I have on a normal day basis, who's to say that when I'm dreaming, I am not getting a glimpse of one of the crazy ass universes out there where I am living that out?
Right.
Which would also make sense for your deja vu feeling when you're having a dream about something and then it either happened or something is like it, or you somehow it's like the energy shifts where the energy matches. It's like a weird energy match.
It's a node point. It's where
Yeah.
everything just aligns for like a second, and you go, and then you have that awareness, and it's kind of like that graphic where the guy's looking at himself, looking at himself, looking at himself.
Looking at himself, looking at himself.
It's
So
that
I
kind of feeling just for a second where everything goes whoop, whoop, you know?
I think that a lot of spiritual ideas, practices, belief systems make sense in a multiverse theory, especially the ultimate one, because it goes back to that creator part. If that could be our higher self and we are split into all these different universes, all these different timelines where we're all existing at the same time, doing different things. And I think it works when people are like trying to tap into the better parts of themselves. I think you can pull from yourself in different dimensions that are doing different things in different universes.
Yes.
Any other final thoughts?
No, I think that was a good episode to start
Yeah.
deep Thought-Iwaba with. It gets you right in there. I'm excited to see about all the other stuff that random topics we're gonna come up with to dive
Yeah.
into.
I think we
I
should
know.
do an entire thing on simulation theory itself.
Me
and like looking
too.
for the, you know, and we should
Yeah.
do something on meditation.
For sure.
Maybe
Yes.
first we'll do simulation, and
Okay.
then for sure. We'll do meditation, of course, but I think it would make sense if we have all this fresh in our brain. But it throws me through a loop, I tell you. It really does, because I think we all kind of agree or can see how it's possible. But then on an everyday basis, you kind of forget and you go back into your like drone self where you're just like going through the motions, and we're not taking enough time to stop and really think about what we're doing, thinking, what are our actions, if we can possibly align with the best version of what we want to, quote, manifest, but really could just be quantum jumping or any other term like that.
I
You
had
know?
this thought today. It's kind of similar. So, imagination, like your imagination is kind of like a
Wild.
computer simulator of alternate realities.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And that's kind of the idea, is anything that you can think of either does exist or
right.
then creates itself, because it's a
That's-
possibility. All possibilities and probabilities
That's why I
are
said earlier,
happening.
define here, because if I'm imagining myself on a beach, I mean, physically I'm being observed here, but mentally I'm on a beach. So which is it? The conscious
Right.
experience is on a beach, but my physical body here is here. But I'm not experiencing here. I'm experiencing a beach. So what
Because you're somewhere else.
is the experience reality, or is it the flow of time
The
around my physical
physicality
body?
of it.
Right?
I think
Me
that you
going
could
to
talk
Maple
about
Beach.
that. You could talk about that too, like when it comes to abduction theories, right? So people who have physical abductions and people who have more dream time consciousness abductions. And is there a difference between the two of those things? Like, would you consider somebody who sat in a chair, saw a UFO, and got abducted by an alien a real abductee, right? Or somebody who says, okay, well, I meditated and I saw aliens,
Right.
you know?
I guess there's also a magical third option that I can simultaneously be experiencing a beach whilst also, it's kind of like double think. I'm experiencing a beach consciously in my imagination while simultaneously being aware of my physical existence in space-time here.
Yeah.
And that's why I say define here, because here is always a transitory moment anyway. And time is just something that we made up to make sense of flow, basically.
Right. But that goes back to the
Double slit experiment.
right in the
Yep.
many worlds theory, because your particles are doing both. That's
Right.
it is simultaneous. There's a copy to every one. There is a copy. Craziness.
Crazy.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you all
Wow.
for coming and hanging out with us. That was a quick hour, but we'll be back next time with another one. We love you all, and we'll see you guys next time.
We do indeed.
Bye, guys.